Hello and welcome back to Season 2, Episode 124 of Paranormal NL Podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Pocket Casts, and YouTube. I'm your host, Jen. For tonight's show, let's give a big shout out to who introduced me to tonight's guest. A big shout out to Wolfpack Paranormal GTA from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. That's Mr. Adrian, James, and Jeff. And they were on Paranormal NL Podcast Season 2, Episode 90. Now it's time to pull up your cozy chair and listen in to your favorite podcast. Paranormal NL Podcast is a place where the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada, and anywhere else in the world can share their paranormal experiences. PNL Podcast also believes in supporting people, places, and things to promote paranormal tourism and paranormal networking all over the world. A big thank you again to all the P&L Podcast alumni guests from Season 1 and 2, and of course, our fans. We want to hear your stories. Do you have any paranormal, metaphysical, UFO, cryptid creatures, folklore, historical books, or just tales of the weird you'd like to share as a guest on my P&L Podcast? Please reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, or Gmail at paranormal.nl.podcast@gmail.com. And after your episode, you'll become part of the P&L Podcast Alumni Network. Make sure you click on the bell, like, and subscribe to follow along on whatever platform you're listening in on and get updates for new episodes. And also, don't forget, head on over to our main hangout. It's a Facebook group, and join our group, Paranormal NL Podcast group. It's a safe space. Find upcoming new paranormal episodes in the featured section of the group, and we're listening to our fans. PNL Podcast now has a Facebook page for fans who are not on Instagram. And we're also on the Real Drops is where we're putting those at. And it's also a spot for the new P&L Bog investigation team. That's right. We have a new branch of Paranormal NL Podcast with the P&L Bog team, a boots on the ground paranormal investigation team doing local historic investigations in Newfoundland. And our fans asked us for Paranormal NL Podcast, and the new P&L Bog team merch is now available on TeePublic, and all the different logo designs to customize your swag items that fans asked for. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and start bringing on the StreamYard stage our fans asked for tonight. We have, I see Nick came with us too. We have Wayne. Welcome, Wayne.
Good evening.
We have Willow. Welcome, Willow. We have Lynn. Welcome, Lynn. And look, we have Nick. Now, I'm going to have each one of y'all introduce yourselves. Who wants to go first? Willow, you want to go first?
Hi, my name is Willow. I am a paranormal investigator and podcaster. I have 3 shows. I have the Mystical Carousel, Fools Ghouls, and I will be starting a new crime show, Dark Archives with Willow. And I couldn't be without my team that's joined me tonight.
And you're joining from Scotland, correct?
Yep, from Scotland, yes.
Okay, I'm going to have you introduce the next person, or let the next person chime in. Who do you want to talk about next? Everybody's quiet. Wayne,
why don't you fire, Wayne?
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm Wayne. I'm a paranormal investigator. I'm also a presenter of an online TV show called Truth Beyond Paranormal. I also co-run or co-own an events company called Spookinory Events, which is an offshoot from books that I also write. So I'm also an author of ghost stories called Spookinory. And obviously I'm a podcaster in very different avenues. I'm obviously co-hosting with Willow on Fools and Ghouls and Mystical Carousel Show. I also co-host a show on a Monday evening called The Dark Mirror Radio Show, where we talk about aliens, UFOs, and conspiracy theories.
Love it. We got a good mix of people here. How about you, Lynn?
Oh, hi. My name's Lynn Murphy. I live in North Wales, and I'm an independent paranormal investigator. I like to do history, and I do a lot of stories about history, and I like ufology. I'm also a podcaster on Willow's Magical Carousel Show and Fools and Ghouls.
Welcome. And
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Hi, Nick. Nice to have you. Introduce yourself.
So my name is Nick Mulae. I live here in the United States, in Chicago, Illinois, to be exact. And I've been a paranormal investigator now for 19 years, since I was 12 years old. I am part of the Things Go Society. In fact, I run the Things of Illinois chapter. I'm also a co-host for multiple different paranormal podcasts, including one that I host my own called The Nick Files. And just like the rest of the crew here, I'm also a co-host on Mystical Carousel Show and Fools and Ghouls, among the collection of shows that I co-host.
How did everybody meet here? Was it just a random chance?
Basically, I met Lynn when she was doing another podcast. I met Nick about 3 years ago. We were both on a podcast that I used to be part of. And I met Wayne. Known Wayne for a good while. And again, same podcast that I met Nick on. And then I just abducted yous and brought you into the dungeon and said, "Come along."
Follow me.
And
No, we got sucked in, really.
And we did.
You got sucked into a black hole.
Yeah, she can't get rid of it. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. What happens is, Jen, I generally say, "Do you want to come on my podcast?" And if I like their style, then I end up saying, "Well, why don't you be my co-host? Come with me." And they never left.
It was really my charming personality that sort of got me on there.
It was your dad's 10 out of 10 personality.
Yeah,
do
definitely.
I dare ask what the initiation was? Hey, Lynn.
Hey, I'm not telling you, secret.
You all got some secret tattoo somewhere.
If I told you that, Jen, I'd have to kill you. You know what
That's
I mean?
right.
It's not happening.
we do have a rather dodgy handshake.
Oh, there you go.
I believe it's that.
Oh, that's a good one, Wayne. Oh, my God.
I say a lot of people struggle just to do that, let alone go like that as well.
I know. I don't care.
Wait,
How do you do that? Oh my goodness! Now we're all starting to make little
you-
shapes.
Better
you-
we can do it with both hands, look.
Why don't you just go out? Just go out.
Now I know. But when you were a kid, you were the one making all the shadow stuff, right, on the wall. That was you, right, Wayne?
Spot on.
Normally, as a child, it was the one that was scaring the living daylights out of everybody.
Yeah, talking about being scared.
Yep.
Come on, let's dig right in. Tell me your scary, spooky stuff. Who wants to go first? What's the worst thing that ever happened to y'all? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. The worst thing that's ever
Okay.
happened to me, I moved to this house. Well, it was it used to be a flat, but it was like two houses in one. And when I moved in, the day I moved in, I could see the spirit at the top of the stairs, and it wasn't very nice. But I lived there for 2 years, and then the first Christmas I was there, on the Boxing Day, I had family coming round. So because this place had two kitchens, all my stuff was in the top kitchen. I moved it downstairs. There were Victorian stairwell, so it was quite steep. But I'd been up and down several times within the hour, and I went and got one more lot down. So it was a tray and a glass dish. And as I was just about to walk downstairs, something come behind me and banged me like that on the bottom of my back. And I flew across the stairs and dropped about 6 foot.
Ow.
I was on my own in the house at the
You must
time.
have been scared.
I was petrified, so I just lay there. Everything was broken around me. I lay there until I realised there was nothing wrong with me. Then I moved. Anyway, when I moved out of the place, the day I moved, I went in to brush up, just clean round. And as I approached the place, there was a dead rook on my doorstep, and which was a bad omen.
Mm.
So that got...
But tell me about your back, though. I mean, did you have a lot of bruising and things like that?
No.
No?
It's crackers. Yeah, it was just crackers.
That's crazy, right? There's nothing worse when stuff touches you and like really hurts you, though.
Yeah.
Have anybody else had that kind of stuff happen, like physical stuff?
I'll go next in this case because this actually just happened to me a year ago.
Really?
Wow.
And these guys already know the story all too well. I've told this on a lot of different shows, but we investigated as a crew last year at an abbey, as a matter of fact, in Canyon City, Colorado, which it's over 100 years old now. It was built in 1923. It no longer operates like with church services, but it can be seen as kind of like a walk-in museum.
Okay.
But it also did allow investigations for this location. So what happened to me in this case, it literally happened a few minutes after we got started with the investigation.
That's quite early. Yeah.
Yeah, I never expected things to happen so soon. We were out in the what is it? Kind of in the church area, I guess.
Okay.
And we were sitting on the pews, and we were actually doing a ghost box session at first, and we got a couple of responses like you would normally expect. Horrific pain in my stomach, and of course, I first thought, could I have eaten something? But this was like a really sharp stabbing pain. I've always described exactly the same way. It almost felt like whatever it was just grabbed hold of your stomach and then just twisted it as hard as they could. And that's why I say, guys, I don't know what it is, but I'm feeling like this intense pressure. So they got me up, and I had to leave for a little bit. And after, and I was fine. But then when I went back downstairs, I went back down to join the rest of the group. That pain started coming back a second time, and I think, okay, this is getting. I knew I was being attacked by whatever it was that attacked. They literally had to put holy water all over me, because it was getting that bad. But even though that did help, whatever this thing was did not seem like it wanted to give up, because about an hour later, that's when this thing decided to show itself. We were then on the second or third floor, and one of my investigators points out saying, "Do you see what's down the hallway?" And I looked down, and at first I saw what looked like 2 or 3 shadow figures standing at the end of the hallway. And they were only there for maybe a second, because after that, they all vanished and a fourth one showed up. It almost seemed like this thing was not only scared off the shadow people, but this thing, it wasn't even the same thing. It was like this tall humanoid creature that I saw. The first thing I noticed was the immense size of it. I'm a pretty big guy myself. I'm about 6'1", 6'2". This thing was at least 8.5, 9 feet tall.
That's tall.
Its body was incredibly emaciated, almost like it hadn't eaten in years. Yeah, it was completely black, almost like it pulled the darkness of the hallway and wore it like a skin. So therefore, no facial features or anything. But I could see the head was oval shaped, so it was completely bald. Its arms were like long and spindly, like those of a spider's. But the worst part of all was its fingers. It had these extremely long talon-like fingers. It stood there. It looked at me at first, and then looked back to the rest of the group. And I never saw how it walked, but it seemed like an eternity. But I think it only lasted about like 20 or 30 seconds before it disappeared. I'm left there like literally thinking to myself, what the hell is this thing?
Right. Did I just see that kind of thing?
It really was. It's such an unbelievable feeling when you get that, because you really have to stop and think, am I really seeing this? I was shocked, but surprised.
Tell me about your abdomen, though, your stomach. Was there marks on there?
Surprisingly, no. There were no marks, but later that night, after when I had this encounter with this creature, the weirdest thing is I never did see it again afterwards, but I started having what I would call like recap dreams, almost. And not only just my sleep, it's like it was playing in my mind from like a second viewing, and it's like a replay of what happened in the church area. And I could see in this replay, if you will, was I could see that huge same creature standing and kind of bending over and using its long fingers to cause that stomach pain. The scariest part about that whole thing was in these recap dreams, it was the same exact look, but this time it had glowing red eyes to it.
Yeah,
And it was definitely scary. What I believe I may have seen, I heard this. I know this first started off as a creepypasta legend, but I was actually told that there was some. If you've ever heard of the rake before,
Yeah.
it's like a cryptid of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, and I was told prior that supposedly people have seen this. So I honestly believe I encountered the rake.
So for
Nick-
people listening around the world who don't know what the rake is, or what is that for people who don't know?
So, sorry.
That's the rake calling you.
So the
He's
rake,
calling you.
so the rake is, I mean, like I said, at first it started off as an online creepypasta legend, but over the years, people have actually now been reporting seeing this creature. The appearance of it differed only slightly from what I saw. It's kind of been described as almost like a night stalker of some sort. We don't know exactly what it is. We don't know if it's an extraterrestrial or some demon or some type of creature from another dimension. We're not sure. But it's often described usually as a pale, naked man or a large, hairless dog of some sort. But the main feature it's often known for are these extremely long fingers. Rake-like.
How many fingers? How many fingers, Nick? How many did it have? Can you
About-
remember?
It was about the same number as a human's, about 5 digits, but they were extremely long. So they're rake-like fingers, hence its name, the rake.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Nick. Yeah, that is a disturbing experience. I guess I'll let somebody else go next. I do have a question, like to follow up with everybody on like after their experiences.
Go on,
Where
Lance.
you go for?
All right. Problem is, I don't scare easily. It's very
always a
hard
good
to
thing.
scare me. So, I've got 2 experiences where it's scared other people while I've been present,
Right.
and it's had the opposite effect with me. And one incident was about 7 or 8 years ago. We were at an old Napoleonic fort. And we were, me and another investigator, Claire, we were in a prison cell. And the prison cell was set up the way it was during World War II, where they used to house downed German pilots before they were transported off to prisoner of war camps. And so they had the old style beds, table with nice forks, spoons, things. But they had a mannequin dummy in every room dressed up as a German pilot.
Okay.
And the other investigator, she went and sat in one corner at the table. I stood in the doorway, and this mannequin dummy was about 12, 13 feet away from me. And we put a trigger object on the bed, and it was one of those motion sensor ones. And it was like a boxing ring with a red light in each corner. You put the ball in the middle and set the alarm. And we called out. We asked, if there are any spirits in the room, can you please come forward? Can you move the ball on the little box on the bed? But what was annoying was these red lights kept flashing. And every time they flashed, Claire was saying, every time they flash, the mannequin's moving.
Oh,
So I'm standing in the doorway and I'm really struggling to keep focus on the mannequin dummy. And I couldn't see it moving. But I'm sort of quite susceptible to spirit. And I could feel that something was building. And I just turned around to her and I said, no, it's not moving, but something is going to happen because I can feel it moving. And as I said that, the mannequin dummy just came straight at me across the room. It had gone about a foot and a half off the floor and came straight at me. And I went, oh my God. And I've grabbed it and the head's fallen off and hit the floor. My first instinct was to laugh.
Right.
I just laughed.
Right.
Then she swore and said, I'm not here for this. I won't repeat what she said word for word.
Oh, did she leave?
She said, I'm not here for this. And boom, she was gone. And she went, the actual fort itself is in a big concrete donut. It's in a big ring. And the courtyard itself, it's something out of Narnia. It's got a big lamppost right in the middle.
Oh, okay.
And she ran off out into the courtyard and stood under the lamppost because it's the only source of light. And I called out and went, "Does someone help me, please?" Well, fortunately, there were 3 people in the next cell along, and they were videoing dowsing rods. And as they called out and asked the spirits to cross the rods over if there was any spirits there with them, the spirits, the rods crossed over, and then they heard Claire scream and run off. And as they turned the camera, you see her legs running out at the end of the corridor, and this little ball of light came out of our cell and followed her out into the courtyard.
Oh my gosh.
And as far as I'm aware, she has never returned to paranormal investigating since.
Really?
And she just will not go, she will not do it anymore simply because of that experience. The other one
must have been traumatizing for her. Not a lot of people are used to the whole poltergeist type.
The other one was a personal experience, and that happened 38 years ago. Me and my friends used to go down to our local shipyard. My granddad was killed down there when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
I'm sorry.
And we went down there, and we were sort of being nosy, and we went into a warehouse that you could only get into by shimmying down a very thin ledge round to the riverside itself and across the top of the building and across the top of the warehouse and then down through a 3rd floor window into this house. And the house itself was all boarded up with big metal boards.
Right, yeah.
All screwed to the windows and the doors. There was no way anybody could have got into this house apart from the way we did.
Right.
Obviously, 12 years old, you're all fit and sort of
you're
able
gonna
to
find
do
a way
these
in
things.
at that age, yeah.
We've gone into the warehouse at the top and into the house at the top of the stairs, and we've gone down the stairs, and it's split into 2 rooms, one left, one right. A couple of my friends went into the right-hand room. Me and 2 others went into the left-hand room, and as we walked in, there was a beam of light coming in through the window, and it shone onto this armchair, and sitting in the armchair was this very old, wrinkly hand, and you could the skin was that thin you could see the veins clearly through the back of his hand, and he had a hand-rolled cigarette in his hands, and it was still burning.
Oh wow.
And my first instinct was, it's my granddad, I'm gone. And I shot back up the stairs, and all my friends went with us, and we got back outside, and we were like, who on earth was that? How did they get in there? And we looked at all possible ways of somebody getting into that building, and unless they were fit and healthy like we were at the time, there was no way an older gentleman would have been able to have climbed all the way over and into that house. And we then went into another building, and someone had left a piece of wood and had written on it and saying, may the ghost of Fred Payne haunt everybody that comes into this land. And we just automatically thought it was my granddad, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty weird. And it sort of kept my interest of the paranormal going.
Oh, so that kind of spiked it when you were young?
Yeah, I mean, the first time I saw anything was shortly after my granddad had died.
Okay.
Or was killed. And I've been seeing him for about 6 months after he was killed. And everybody said, oh, you just miss him that much that your brain is telling you he's there. And I said, he was physically standing at the end of my bed. And it turned out I was actually having full-blown conversations with him. And after 6 months, I think he was just checking to make sure I was going to be okay, because I was closer to my granddad than I was to any other member of my family. He taught me to read before I even started school. And
I've heard a lot of people talk about that with their families. Like in my family, it happened a couple of times to different people who'd passed, and people swore that those people were at the end of their bed talking to them when they had passed. And people said, no, that can't be right. You couldn't have been talking to them. They're not with us anymore. You know, it is interesting how that happens.
But it's I mean, we all talk about it on on the shows, don't we? That we say that children are more open and more susceptible to spirits, so they are likely to talk to ghosts if they see them. And there is a big theory now that imaginary friends could be actually spirits that have moved on, and they come back in visitation, and the children have made friends with them, and they're talking to them.
I've had a lot of people say that on different shows. Yeah, for sure. Now, I know that you've had some, scary experiences. But having said that, what do you all use for like different things protection-wise? Do you have a certain person on the team that does that, or do y'all have different personal things that you do? I know everybody has their own thing.
I do personal things. I make sure I'm protected. Doesn't matter what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go, where I'm going to invest, or just look around. If I get energies from there, I put protection round.
Okay. Yeah. But do you use crystals or sage?
Sometimes I use crystals. Sometimes I don't. It depends on the strength of the energies, really. If I know it's going to be bad, I get some crystals and I use protection. And in fact, sometimes I protect everybody else who's with me as well.
Okay.
I get the whole lot protected. Yeah.
That's always good to have one member on your team who does that kind of stuff.
Because not everybody does protection.
It's true.
This is where I'm about to be booed.
Not everybody believes it. See, this is it. Yeah.
I personally don't use protection, and I can feel eyes burning on me and the boo. I just don't use
There's
it.
a lot of people who don't. Yeah.
I just don't feel like I have a need. But then saying that, I have brought things home with me.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that. Have you had any attachments?
Yeah, I have had things come home with me. When I first started going out with friends before I actually entered the paranormal world, I didn't use protection. And I investigated an abbey in the next 2 towns away from me. And what happened was I brought it home. At that time, we had a house alarm in the old house. Never used it, never needed to use it. So I just put my son and his friend to bed one night and literally sat down in my bed and the house alarm went off. Now, never in the whole time that my partner or myself lived in the house, it's never went off.
I bet that scared you in the middle of the night, hey?
It did scare me because I'd never heard it, and I don't like loud noises. I'm not the best with loud noises. And what happened was he had went down. Now, he was in that house longer than what I had been, and he had a code, and tapped in the code, nothing. Phoned up the alarm system, they gave him the code, nothing. Tried it 3 times, nothing.
So
absolutely nothing could stop this from going off. He had to physically dismantle it, smash it, to actually get it to stop. Because it never had went off. And that went off only when I started dabbling in the unknown, as they like to say.
Well, they say that it likes to mess with electronics, right? So,
yeah.
Yep. And I think that was my first experience of, oh wow, I've brought something home with me.
Yeah.
See it as long as it doesn't do me any harm. I don't mind.
Did you have anything else weird happen besides your alarm, or?
I've had other strange things. I've had where I got my first cat, and she was a kitten, and we had brought her home, and you know what all your pets are like, dead shy in the corner, then they explore, then obviously they had like start running about. This one in particular night, Ikora came out of her bedroom. Bearing in mind that she's a kitten, we had a like our banister from the stairs is like a 10-foot drop. So she's hyperactive and she cleared the banister. She actually literally cleared the banister. Now you would think at the bottom you would hear a clatter. Now, honestly, if I don't see any of yous again, or any of your viewers or whatever, this is gospel. She cleared it. When we I panicked because it was like,
Right? You thought you were gonna
nothing. There was not a thud.
9 lives.
There was not a thud at the bottom of the stairs. It was like she got caught at the bottom of the stairs. Honestly, right hand up to God, telling you the truth right now. There was no thud. We ran down the stairs to check her over. There was nothing wrong with her. And it was like she had been caught at the bottom, as though something had caught her. And honestly, I've tried debunking that in my head because I'm not...
Well, cats always right themselves because they have the equilibrium in their ears to do that, right? But a kitten, too, seems to be a little bit kind of like when you're a kid, like Wayne was saying, you're indestructible, right? But that is a pretty far drop for your poor kitty. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think the problem is, as well, I'm a thinker. I like to try and debunk. And for me, it's no straight, oh my God, that was paranormal. For me, it was...
What happened?
Was there something was like something soft, maybe on there she's landed on or anything like that, but it wasn't. It was just a case of boom. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Especially with the height. Even if she did hit the bottom of the stairs, there would have still been some sort of noise to suggest that she had smacked the bottom. There was nothing like that to suggest that she had hit the bottom. And I think what we were more worried about was, what if she's broke her wee legs? What if... I was actually scared to go down, quite personally, in case, heaven forbid. But it was quite a drop to drop for...
Well, thank goodness Kitty's okay.
Oh God, mad as a brush.
Right. So yeah, everybody in every, we're talking about different continents here. We got Canada, US, Scotland. And, when I say UK, I mean it's quite the large place, but everybody does things differently. I mean, Nick, do you do anything differently?
Well, this was recently shown to me from the guy who actually runs the Things group himself, which is someone, I don't know if you're going to have him anytime soon on your show. His name is Jeremy York. He's the owner of the Things Go Society, also the podcasting network, Things Network. He had introduced me, and this is something I'm really surprised I haven't learned sooner. He had introduced me about using, when it comes to investigations, about using a dog whistle, as a matter of fact.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. My husband owns a doggy daycare. You're on to something here. What'd you do with the dog whistle?
So the dog whistle, from what I learned from Jeremy, and of course I've learned from the experiences, like when you blow a dog whistle, most of the time you don't really hear, it's designed
humans can't hear it.
Dogs to hear, but not for us to hear. The dog whistle that I got, I mean, it does have a little bit of a whistle type sound, but because the fact that, a lot of times whenever there are spirits around, unless you're using like a ghost box or something, like when it comes to voices, you can't really hear it, with just your simple ear or something like that. So the fact of using the dog whistle when you blow something, which can't be heard by human ears, there's probably a very likely chance that probably even in the spirit world, it could be heard very clearly. So it's like kind of like a
kind of like when they use those bowls,
Yeah, very
About the
much.
singing bowls.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very much. Yeah, it's like
Infrared sound and stuff too.
Balls, yeah.
It's
like
I use them.
Yeah, I use them. Yeah, I use them as well. But the dog whistle, we've definitely gotten some really interesting results. I've always described it almost like as the audio version of like an infrared camera. Like how when you use an infrared camera and it can capture things that you can't see with the naked eye. It's kind of the same thing with the dog whistle, but it's with sound as a result. And like I said, the results we've gotten have been really fascinating. Like what we'll actually do is we'll have everything ready. We'll tell if we're with our group, we'll tell everybody to be quiet. And if anybody has a dog whistle, we wouldn't just do it one at a time. We would blow our dog whistles like all at once and see if we can get some kind of reaction response out of it.
That would be really loud. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But like I said, we got a couple responses and it was really fascinating from what we heard.
What were the responses though?
Well, they were different types of responses. Some of them, I think we got a few responses saying, "Hey, can you stop with that noise?" Because it was probably
too loud. Okay.
But then there were other voices, I think, that were asking, like, what is that noise? That kind. So I think we triggered their curiosity because, if you're talking to a spirit who lived 100, 200 years ago, I don't know if they ever had dog whistles as far as back then, but they probably wouldn't have a clue what a dog whistle or a noise like that would be. Right. So that was probably a new noise to them when they heard that. So I think it triggered curiosity. But there is one piece of advice that I do want to tell in case anybody wants to talk with you. Lois already knows. Never, ever use it outside on an investigation. Trust me, you will be sorry because there was, long story short, there was another group that we've worked with. They went out to a cemetery after dark and they decided to use the dog whistle in the cemetery. Well, they got responses all right, but it was not from anything paranormal. They start hearing all this howling, and here comes these coyotes.
Oh, no.
That's all I'm saying. It's fine if you use it inside of them, but do not.
I was going to say, if you're out bigfooting or squatching, you may not want to do that. You'll get wolves in our area in Labrador. We got wolves, and we got coyotes here too.
Wow. That's why I'm saying you will be sorry if you do.
Yeah, you don't want some cougar sneaking up on you for lunch.
Yeah, or even worse, that. Yeah.
That would not be good. I love all the new technique stuff.
But the dog whistle is definitely a good use. And the thing about it too, a dog whistle just like costs $2 or $3, so it's also one of the cheapest types of paranormal equipment you can get.
Yeah, I like the old school stuff and just trying weird stuff like different speculums on the light and all that. If y'all tried anything like different or weird, like what Nick just mentioned, something that's not the mainstream, what have you guys tried?
I prefer to go old school. I will use technology.
Mm-hmm.
So I will use these apps and things like that. I've got an app currently being developed for my team. So I'm quite happy to use them, but I would rather go more old school. So it'll be things like dowsing rods, but I'm quite partial to doing trigger objects.
I like that too. Yeah.
And I love to go into a place and I'll put a piece of paper on the floor, put a coin on the top of it and draw around the coin, and then leave a locked off camera on there and then seal the area off and go away and then come back an hour later.
Yeah, brilliant. I do that.
Doing that sort of thing to me, with the locked off camera, if the locked off camera stays on long enough, because I've done it before where I've put the locked off camera on and I've gone back to look over the footage and it's got about 20 minutes in and it's just cut out.
Switched off, yeah.
And
now the
I've then switched it. I've switched it back on again, and the battery's fine. But something has turned the camera off, rather than allow it to keep recording. And although the camera hasn't picked up the paper or the coin moving, the paper or the coin has moved, but after the camera was switched off. And nobody had gone into the room. So
paper and newspaper, or just a blank piece of paper?
Just a blank piece of paper, and then put the coin on the top, draw around it. I mean, we've got the 50 pence piece, which is was it 7-sided? So obviously you've got those sides that would be quite predominant if the paper or the coin had been moved. So you draw your line around it, and then if it's moved, you're going to see clearly that it has been moved at some point.
Period objects too, like if you're in, like somebody was talking, we're talking about the church and stuff like that, and we went to one place and we brought all this churchy stuff, and then as a trigger thing we did like a communion and stuff like that to try to trigger whatever, try to open the veil somehow, right? We theorize that it helps bring them in, because they probably don't know what the tech is, or like, what the heck is that, but they would recognize a dowsing rod or something. One
of my favorite pieces I've used most recently, and I only use it when I'm on religious ground or an area that has been used as a chapel at some point, and I use a cross, but it's got fake diamonds on the inset of the cross, and I put that cross in a little plastic treasure box, and it's see-through, and I always put it so that the fake diamonds are facing upwards. And then I asked Spirit, if they're there, can they flip the crossover or take it out of the box? And I think about 30 times that I've done the experiment, only once has the cross been flipped over.
Wow, at least it's done it.
And so now what I do now is I'm using that as a trigger object test now with a locked off camera on.
Okay.
Because to me that would be pretty brilliant if I was able to catch that on camera. This cross being flipped over inside this glass box, and so far it hasn't done it. So I'm thinking, you're watching me doing this, you know what I'm up to, and it just chooses not to do it, and it's annoying because I know it's done it before.
Interesting how you talk about mirrors and glass in a box. I had a gentleman on and who made a divot box and tried to capture something, and we were talking about people who've stopped investigating, and he actually stopped investigating. He was on season 1 episode, I think it was 28, Robert, and he just called the Devil's Toy Box, and he had made this, and he could hear stuff in it. It was affecting his family, and finally he ended up throwing it into the ocean. And just quitting the paranormal altogether. It was that disturbing.
I think the best one I've ever seen was when I was out with a team, and we were doing an experiment, the blind experiment, and what this team would do was say, write a number or write a shape, draw a shape, sorry. And what they would say to Spirit is, right, Spirit, we have drawn this, or we've put a number. What's the number? I just happened to be doing the blind test. So I'm standing there with the headphones on, blindfolded. So the team had wrote 16 and had said to Spirit, Spirit, can you tell me what number you've written? So I'm obviously in the zone. So I said 844. And when I came off, obviously after doing it, and somebody was writing down, obviously, what I had said.
Right.
The guy said to me who wrote the number, honestly, you're no good. And I went, how? Because we've wrote the number 16, right? So I said, let's see what I said. So I was talking gibberish, I think, but I'd noticed 844.
16.
And I went, I said, you've still got the number 16. What do you mean? 844 was 8 plus 4 plus 4.
Yeah, 16.
That's 16. You still got your 16? What are you complaining about?
Just talking
It
to
was like,
your way. Maybe it was a math teacher you were talking to.
well, I can honestly say, Jen, without a shadow of a doubt, I'm not good at maths. I've got problem with numbers, so how I could make 16 out of that, I don't know.
It is fun though to try different techniques. Well, I want to before we we peace out, I want everybody to talk about their socials. We got a lot of people here, so let's give a shout out for everybody. Who wants to start with how everybody can follow y'all and your socials? And you can send your socials to me in the link if you got a link tree too, and I can upload that.
No problem. We have 2 Facebook groups for both shows, Fools and Ghouls and the Mystical Carousel Show. Also, I have a group for the Dark Archives with Willow. You will find us on Things Network, BB3 TV, Ghost Squad Scotland, and the Temple of Phoenix Rising Entertainment. Also, I have my Facebook page, Willow Morgan, where I keep all my podcasts. I even promote other teams, other podcasts. I can't even think anymore. Jump in, anyone.
Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. So
Okay.
you can find me on the Magical Carousel Show with Lo on Things Network and also Fools and Ghouls. You'll find me on Facebook under Lynn Murphy, and you'll also find me on TikTok under lynn.murphy@7. I've got some very interesting little videos I've put together on that.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I'm on there too.
All right. Who's next?
Go on, Nick.
I'll go next in this case. I'll go next. So for the most part, I mean, I'm usually just on Facebook, but in addition to 2 shows here, because I'm part of multiple different shows, you could find me on, well, as a whole with the actual network itself, the Things Network. You could find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, LinkedIn. We just got a Rumble account created, and we're actually going to soon have a TikTok account created as soon as well. But yeah, for the most part, you can just find me under Nick Mulae on Facebook, and also too, you can find me on YouTube because I have a YouTube channel, not necessarily paranormal wise, but I also do audiobooks as well, scary stories that some of these guys have actually helped out with within the last year or so. So I'm kind of on, those are the 2 main platforms, Facebook or YouTube for me.
Fun. How about you, Wayne?
Well, you can find me on Facebook under Wayne Seaden. I also have a Facebook group, Wayne Seaden Presents Spookinory, which is my horror and ghost stories group that I have. I also have Spookinory Events Limited on Facebook as well, which is the events group that I run with my partner Ellen. Also, you can find me on Truth Beyond Paranormal on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. And I think it's Instagram as well, and I think we've got Twitter as well somewhere along the line for Truth Beyond Paranormal. I'm also on the Dark Mirror radio show on Monday nights on Facebook, usually about 9:30 UK time. And basically flitting about all over the internet, really. I get all over the place. I sort of fly about here, there, and everywhere, but they're the main ones I'm on.
Well, thanks for giving all your shout outs, everybody, and thanks for being on tonight. Everybody follow Willow, Wayne, Nick, and Lynn. Go ahead, Willow.
No, I was going to say thanks very much, Jen. I really want to give a big, huge thank you to Adrian. I really do. I think that guy honestly deserves so much.
Big shout out to Wolfpack Paranormal. Adrian Scott is who Willow is talking about. Yep, they were on season 2, episode 90 with Paranormal NL podcast. But yes, it was really nice of him to recommend y'all. And we're going to peace out and say stay spooky, everybody. But don't hang up, because I'm going to ask y'all who I should have on next off air. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks to all for tuning in.
No star.
I'm going to hang up.